Welcome to the Monty Collier Report. I'm Monty Collier. In this video, I will be discussing that John Calvin taught law-gospel distinction. The past few decades have seen a resurgence of heretics pretending to be Presbyterian and Reformed, yet rejecting law-gospel distinction. Heresies such as Federal Vision, the New Perspective on Paul, and Lordship Salvation have rejected law-gospel distinction in their efforts to teach justification by faith and works. Men like Douglas Wilson, N.T. Wright, and John MacArthur repudiate law-gospel distinction in their books. Some have even dared to suggest that John Calvin did not teach law-gospel distinction himself, and that law-gospel distinction is a Lutheran belief rather than a Presbyterian one. A simple reading of John Calvin's Institutes of the Christian Religion ends such an absurd claim. This is one reason you should obtain a copy of Calvin's Institutes and read it carefully for yourself. I personally think the John Allen translation is the best translation of the Institutes, and also the easiest to read. John Calvin wrote the following, and I quote, "We should make a proper distinction between the law and the promises, or between the commandments and grace." End quote. Institutes 257. Again, I'm using the John Allen translation. Below is another quote from John Calvin. In this quote, Calvin utilizes Augustine to teach that the law demands our perfect obedience all of the time, but not the gospel. The gospel, on the other hand, demands nothing from us, but freely provides us with the saving righteousness of Jesus Christ alone, gratuitously credited to our accounts and received by faith alone, so that we are justified before God and treated as if we had kept the law perfectly, based entirely on the finished work of our surety, Jesus Christ, the righteous, in our stead. That being said, John Calvin writes the following, and I quote, "Of making us of the law to implore the assistance of God, Augustine frequently treats, as when he writes to Hilary, the law gives commands, in order that, endeavoring to perform them, and being wearied through our infirmity under the law, we may learn to pray for the assistance of grace." Also to Acilius, "The utility of the law is to convince man of his own infirmity, and to compel him to pray for the gracious remedy provided in Christ." Also to Innocentius Romanus, "The law commands, grace furnishes strength for the performance." Again to Valentine, "God commands what we cannot perform, that we may know what blessings we ought to supplicate him." Again, the law was given to convict you, that being convicted you might fear, that fearing you might pray for pardon, and not presume on your own strength. Again, the end for which the law was given was to diminish that which was great, to demonstrate that you have yourself no ability to work righteousness, that thus, being poor, indigent, and destitute, you might have recourse to grace for relief. Afterwards, he addresses himself to God. "Thus do, O Lord, thus do, O merciful Lord, command that which cannot be performed, even command that which cannot be performed without thy grace, that when men cannot perform it in their own strength, every mouth may be stopped, and no man appear great in his own estimation. Let all men be mean, and let all the world be proved guilty before God. But I am not wise in collecting so many testimonies, which this holy man has written a treatise expressly on this subject, which is entitled De Spiritu et Littera, on the Spirit and Letter." End quote.